Hello, and welcome to the Energy Connect studio at ADIPEC 2023. I'm delighted to have sitting next to me in the studio Anne-Laure de Chammard, member of the executive board at Siemens Energy. Anne-Laure, thank you so much for joining me.
Very happy to be here.
Now, why is transformation of industry so important, and what are you and Siemens Energy thinking about?
Well, carbon emissions coming from industry account for 30% of the total emissions. And this is why there will be no energy transition if we don't decarbonize the industry. And we see it as something which needs to happen through three levers, which are first, the most important one, electrification, hydrogen, and then carbon capture. So electrification has to happen in all the industrial processes like heat electrification and so on. And we're typically working with companies like wood fiber LNG to completely electrify the LNG process. And by doing so, it reduces by 80% the carbon emissions of the process. Then hydrogen is important in hard-to-abate sectors, notably. And there, typically, we work like with petrochemical companies like Braskem in Brazil, where we're helping them switch from gas turbines to turbines that can co-fire hydrogen up to 60%. Or we're also working in projects in Chile to produce hydrogen and capture carbon to be able to produce synthetic fuels for the car industry. So these are projects where we really show that the decarbonization is picking up. And then in industries where it's actually part of the process to emit carbon, such as cement, for example, this is where carbon capture needs to kick in. And there we just announced earlier this year, we're working on a project with Occidental, where in Texas, where it's the world's largest direct air capture plant. And this is through our compressors, this is avoiding 500,000 metric tons of CO2 per year. So there's many, many levers, many pilots, many projects, and now we need to scale.
Accelerate it. Well, it's really interesting, Anne-Laure, and I want to touch on what are the drivers will have the biggest impact then in accelerating the deployment of renewable energy and some of the other parts of the energy transition.
I see five main drivers. The first one is energy efficiency, because as the population, the GDP is growing, there will be more and more demand for energy. And if we don't start reducing and optimizing the way we consume, all the rest is actually useless. So that for me is the most important driver. The second one is the fact that we will need to accelerate in renewables. And this big time, we're talking, for example, in the Middle East and Africa about multiplying by 30 the amount of renewables by 2050. Then in order to have this renewable energy transmitted to where the demand is, there's a huge need for accelerating and expanding the grid. We heard that this morning in the opening speech. There is no transition if there's not transmission. And this is something which is today a big, big bottleneck. And then while doing so, you still need to keep the existing infrastructure in place to be able to do this transition and serve as a bridge. Typically, we think there will still be a strong need for gas through peakers. And these infrastructure will then be able to switch to hydrogen, be it pipeline, be it gas turbines, power plants, etc. And finally, this is something where we're starting to see the importance of it, but it is key, the need to be able to secure and diversify the supply of raw materials and minerals, because this is going to be key. And it has to be done in a way which is where it's not all situated in only one country and has to be diversified in order to be resilient.
That's interesting. And, let me get your viewpoint on how you see the energy transition progressing between now and 2030. And obviously a key thing, just been saying there, accelerating, increasing the grid. But how do you see it progressing?
First, we need to start now. We need to stop talking about it and actually act. This is something which is key. But at the same time, I think progress is the priority. We should go step by step and make sure that gas can be also part of the transition, and we shouldn't switch completely to renewables without securing the rest in order to have a resilient supply of energy. I also think there's an enormous need for international cooperation to be able to get there. and huge need for investment. We're talking about $6 trillion per year until 2030, and need to be invested in this. And this will happen through public funding, private funding, but we all need to work together. And finally, there's a big need for regulatory constraints that need to be alleviated, and we need to have the right frameworks, the right policies to have it accelerate globally.
Yeah, so I'm on that. I mean, more in step globally then, so not different regions having their own different policies. You know, the US under President Biden and the IRA has really pushed the energy transition, climate tech, and those sides. So do you think the other regions, our policymakers, need to sort of work more together?
Yes, completely. And at the same time, it's very good if we have some regions that are taking the lead, because it's also helping the technology and the industry scale up, which can then be useful for the rest of the world. So it's not an issue if some of them are going faster, but the other regions should also follow.
And just before we go, we're here at ADIPEC. The theme of this year is about decarbonisation, and we've been talking about. But what's the importance of a show like this here in Abu Dhabi, talking about decarbonisation and trying to act on it?
So first, at Siemens Energy, we've been partner of ADIPEC, and we believe it's extremely important to have these events to be able to discuss and share about, the technologies that are there, how we can scale, how we can accelerate. And as it was said this morning, to start being having all the oil and gas sector being part of the solution and not seen as the problem anymore. And I think we have the means to be able to do that. And this is really what we're trying to do today in ADIPEC.
Well, that's great, Anne-Laure. And obviously we have just around the corner of COP28 taking place in Dubai. Exactly. So I think more conversations and leading up to that will be important. Right. Well, I just... thanks a lot for coming down.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone for watching, and I look forward to bringing you more studio interviews from the show floor in the coming days.